On October 16, 1946, 10 men climbed 13 steps to a gallows in Nuremberg, Germany. To the world, this was the final act of the most brutal war in human history. The architects of genocide were finally meeting their end. But to those who knew where to look, this wasn't just a hanging. It was the completion of a pattern written 2,400 years ago. Tucked inside the ancient Book of Esther, a text written in the 4th century BC, are 3 tiny, unusual Hebrew letters. For centuries, scribes didn't know why they were there. They looked like typos in a sacred text. But when you apply the laws of gematria to these letters, Tav, Shin, and Zayin, they reveal a numerical value, 707. In the Jewish calendar, the year 5707 corresponds exactly to 1946. In that ancient story, 10 sons of a tyrant named Haman were hanged for attempting to wipe out the Jewish people. In 1946, exactly 10 Nazi war criminals were hanged for the same crime. There were supposed to be 11, but Hermann Göring took his own life hours before the rope could touch his neck, leaving exactly 10. Coincidence? Perhaps. But as we're about to see, Hitler's entire rise and fall didn't just happen. It was predicted, step by step, by seers across 5 centuries who saw the disaster coming before Germany even existed as a nation. Long before the word Führer existed, he was a vision. In 1555, the French physician Michel de Nostradame, better known as Nostradamus, stared into a bowl of black water and saw a shadow over Europe. He wrote of a child born to poor people in Western Europe who would, with his tongue, seduce many, and rise to tyrannize the land. He explicitly described tears, fire, blood, and battle. But Nostradamus wasn't the only one. Fast forward to 1821, the German poet Heinrich Heine issued a chilling warning about a German thunderbolt that would make the world crash. He predicted that eagles in the air would drop dead, a terrifyingly accurate description of aerial warfare a century before the Wright brothers even flew. Then, in 1923, when Hitler was just a failed artist shouting in smoke-filled beer halls, an astrologer named Elsbeth Eberton published his horoscope. She didn't see a painter. She saw a man with the chart of a martyr who would lead crowds to violence. People read her words and started watching for him. They didn't realize that by believing the prophecy, they were providing the very oxygen Hitler needed to burn. Now, if everyone saw this coming, why didn't they stop it? Because the Nazis didn't want to stop the future, they wanted to own it. Joseph Goebbels, the master of propaganda, understood that people are most compliant when they believe their fate is already written. He didn't just study prophecy, he weaponized it. Goebbels created an entire department dedicated to forging prophecies. They hired scholars to comb through Nostradamus, not to study him but to edit him. They printed millions of fake pamphlets, making it look like ancient seers had predicted an inevitable German victory, and dropped them from planes over France and England like propaganda bombs. But the Allies fought back with their own forgeries. It was a war of the stars. Yet while Goebbels was manufacturing the future, his own leaders were becoming slaves to it. Rudolf Hess, Hitler's deputy, was so obsessed with his horoscope that he flew a solo mission to Scotland in 1941 because the planets were aligned for peace. He trusted the stars more than his generals. He parachuted into a field, demanded to meet Churchill, and was immediately arrested. He based his entire flight plan on a horoscope, and it destroyed his life. Behind the public face of the Nazi Party stood the Thule Society, a secret group obsessed with the occult. Their leader, Dietrich Eckart, claimed he had seen a vision of a great one during a seance. On his deathbed in 1923, Eckart's final words were, "Follow Hitler. He will dance, but it is I who have called the tune." Hitler was molded. Even his famous explosive movements were manufactured. He was a mediocre, nervous speaker until he met Erich Jan Hanussen, a professional psychic and con man. Hanussen stood in front of mirrors with Hitler, teaching him how to turn a trembling hand into a fist and how to time his roars for maximum psychological impact. Hanussen even predicted the burning of the Reichstag building, the event that gave Hitler total power. But Hanussen knew too much. He had inside information on the plan and tried to pass it off as vision. 3 weeks later, he was found in a field with 3 bullets in his back. The prophecy was now policy, and the puppet was out of control. The Nazis eventually began a purge, arresting over 600 astrologers. The very people who helped manufacture Hitler's destiny were now too dangerous to let live. So, was Hitler's rise an ancient pattern that couldn't be broken? Or was it a carefully crafted narrative used to control a nation through fear? The Nazis spent years manufacturing prophecies, editing ancient texts, and murdering the seers who predicted the wrong futures. But in the end, the only prophecy that held true was the one they tried to destroy, the ancient Jewish text. 10 Nazis hanged at Nuremberg, fulfilling a 2,400-year-old pattern that Julius Streicher, one of the condemned, recognized moments before he died, screaming, "Purimfest 1946! Today, we aren't told our destiny by star charts or seances. We're told it by algorithms, expert consensus, and media narratives. The danger isn't the prophecy itself, it's the manipulation of belief. History shows us that those in power want you to believe the future is fixed, because a fixed future requires no resistance. But your future isn't written in ancient scrolls or planetary movements. It's determined by your choices. You can think for yourself or believe what you're told. Choose wisely. Choose courageously, because the only prophecy that matters is the one you write yourself. I'm your host, and this was AI Time Tales. If this story changed how you look at history, subscribe to The Loop. We'll see you in the next era.